I've been playing Pokemon a long time. Red version was the first Pokemon game I ever got. Might even be the first video game I ever got, but I could be wrong. Either way, I've been playing Pokemon for a long time. I've caught up with every generation. I haven't gotten all the like middle games or sequel games, but I've gotten a couple of them. I got two of the remakes, so I'm decently versed in Pokemon. And I would say it wasn't until like Gen 6 until I was at all disappointed with Pokemon, but Gen 6 was more of a writing and characters type of thing and a doesn't age well type of thing. And I feel like there was enough that they added, like the new type, Mega Evolutions, stuff like that, that kind of made up for the fact that I was kind of disappointed with the story and the characters and so on. Gen 7 made up for a lot of that. There were even further improvements, and the characters were really good. Sometimes things were a little long-winded, but it was still good. For the first time ever, I felt obligated to have the legendary on my team, not because it's a legendary, but because of its presence in the story. And I also nicknamed the legendary because why wouldn't you? You know what I mean if you've played it. And then Gen 8. I assume everyone knows why Gen 8 has its share of problems. Some of it leading up to the game being released, and some where, people kind of realized it after playing it. Like being kind of away from the action, or man, this scene really, really needed voice acting. In fact, a lot of this really needed voice acting or something. Just a lot of old Pokemon design philosophies that really shouldn't have stayed, but are there anyway. And for the first time on a console, it's not isn't necessarily worth that $60 comparative to the other games. And I played it. I enjoyed my time at first, but then the more I sit on it, it was kind of like Gen 6. The more I sat on it, the less I liked it. But unlike Gen 6, it doesn't quite have all that, like, it doesn't quite have enough for me to want to excuse its problems, and its problems kind of overshadow any good stuff that they have in it. And then when Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were announced, I was like, okay, that sounds exciting. As long as they meet, bare minimum expectations and it's a good Gen 4 remake, fine, I'll get it. They didn't really have to add too much. They just pretty much just had to make either like a Diamond Pearl remake or like a Platinum type remake, and just have it be enough. And then that first trailer came out, and somehow bare minimum expectations were not even met. But even despite my initial reaction, I thought, okay, let me see a little more. Maybe they'll improve it enough. I doubt it, but let's wait and see. Let's at least, maybe at most, I'll wait, or at least I'll wait until the game comes out and people have enough to say about it. And then I waited, and the game came out, and I saw what people had to see about it, and it's a nightmare. And I honestly wish I could be surprised, but I'm glad I didn't get it, because I don't know, just you had Gen 4 remakes in your pocket. It was a free moneymaker, and then you botch it. Like apparently they even outsourced it, and I saw something somewhere about, they had this concept art that looked really ambitious, and then it's what we got. So who knows what's up with that? But yeah, back when that first trailer came out, I was like, I'm worried I'm not going to get these. So instead, what I decided to do was restart Platinum. If I'm not going to get the new remakes, why not just play the old game, which it turns out was actually the superior version all along, which is kind of disappointing for a console game, but whatever. Anyway, after the first trailer came out, I restarted Platinum, and that's the first time I'd ever done that. I've never actually restarted a mainline Pokemon game with the intent to finish it. So this was the first time I've ever done that. And I didn't just want to go through the game normally because, I've done that before, and honestly, there's not a whole lot of challenge in Pokemon. I mean, you can get a few really strong Pokemon and just breeze through it. And if you build your team even half decent, I mean, it's baby's first RPG. They're going to be easy. So I wanted a little bit more of a challenge, but I didn't want to do a Nuzlocke for a couple reasons. Number one, anytime I've done a Nuzlocke, I've never finished it. I've tried like two or three times, and I've given up every time, or I've wiped. And it just seemed like a lot more work than I was willing to put into it, a lot more time than I was willing to put into it, especially because I wanted to be done by the time Legends Arceus came out. And here I finished right in time because it's less than a month away from when I'm making this. So, yeah. But I did want a challenge. I didn't want as extreme as a Nuzlocke, maybe, because I've seen some of the struggles that people have gone through. But I did want a challenge. And I was kind of thinking over what I would do, and then a friend of mine started going back through, I think it was Emerald, and he was doing one-type runs. Basically, the idea behind it is all of your Pokemon must have a specific typing, at least by the time they're fully evolved. I mean, like before they're fully evolved, whatever. But by the time they're fully evolved, all your Pokemon must have a specific typing. It doesn't matter what their second typing is, doesn't matter what their moves are. All that matters is that they all have that one same typing, which, can cause some issues. Only having one typing, you leave yourself at a disadvantage against a lot of typings, depending on which typing you go with. A lot of typings aren't also very accessible in most of the games. Fire type, for example, is, at least in most Pokemon games, I don't know if there's any where they are a bit more common, but in most Pokemon titles, fire types are pretty hard to come by, despite there being a fire starter in every game. And then there's something like dragon typings, where you really can't get any dragon types until like late in the game, 90% of the time. So there are plenty of types that aren't viable, so you kind of have a small grouping of possibilities that you can even go with. When my friend was doing Emerald, he went with water and then dark typing, which he was able to make viable teams with those. Nice. But I wanted to do a different typing. So I kind of went over my options, saw the type spread across Gen 4, like, how many Pokemon of that type are in the game, and are there enough early and middle and late, or whatever, that I can make a full team viable by a certain point in the game. So I looked over what my options were. I didn't want to do water or dark because my friend had done that already. And then I looked at the remaining options. There were some I could have done, but that would leave me at a significant disadvantage through a lot of the game. Grass type, for example. Pretty much all the Team Galactic members have poison types, just about. So, that would leave me at a significant disadvantage. Normal typing or flying typing could also be done, but with flying I didn't want to be at a huge disadvantage once I got to the last gym, because yikes. And normal typings don't have any super effective moves, so there wouldn't be a lot of instances that would really help. But I wouldn't be at a significant advantage or disadvantage most of the game. But I don't really like normal types. They're kind of boring. Eventually, I landed on poison types. In Platinum, there are 7 poison types, I think, that you can get. Meaning out of all the poison types that I could acquire in Platinum, without trading or anything like that, I would have only one Pokemon that I'd have to bench from my team if I got all 7 of them. And then I'd have a full team of 6. Even better, there's a good typing spread through the rest of the team. Good balance aside from the one type that I have. And not only that, I discovered that at least 2 of the poison types that I'd be able to get on my team, I could get really early. So I decided to go with that. The first 2 members of my team that I could get really early were Zubat and Budew, which would eventually become Crobat and Roserade. They're fantastic to have. Crobat is an amazing Pokemon. Any Nuzlocker will tell you that. Having a grass type through a lot of the game is very helpful, so Roserade is grade A pick, I would say. And then, of course, they both have secondary poison typing, which helped a lot in certain areas, but not everywhere, but certain areas. I kept my starter around through, I think, the first gym just to keep my team alive, because I realized very quickly that those first two Pokemon that I got at early levels have no moves. Zubat is terrible, and Budew I caught with no damaging moves until it learned Absorb at, like, I don't even remember what level. But these two really became the backbone of my team for at least the first half. Pretty quickly I also caught a Dustox. A lot more useful than I was expecting. I benched it at first, but then realized, it's actually got pretty good stats. Honestly, I think a lot of bug types are kind of underrated. They learn moves really fast, and they've got half-decent stats that at least can take you through the early portions of the game. I also caught a Ghastly, which I eventually benched for most of the game because it just doesn't learn enough good moves. As much as I like Hunter. Eventually I got to the Great Marsh, I got a Skorupi, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, and a Krogunk. I didn't realize you could find Krogunk just in the wild, and not just in the Great Marsh. That would have been very helpful and not a waste of my time to do it that way. Oh well. Anyway, that was my team for quite a while until I was able to find a Tentacool. That I had so long before I got a water type. Very frustrating. But once I had my full team, I felt like I was set. I was like, nothing can stop me now. I'm golden for the rest of the game. And then I hit the Steel type gym. That gym was one of the worst things I've ever had to deal with. But it was also kind of an eye-opener. I realized a couple things. First, I needed to grind big time. My Pokemon were underleveled. Their stats were low because most of them hadn't evolved. But I also realized what my Pokemon stats were. I've never really paid attention to that before. Actually, I think it was Gen 4 where I first started paying attention to stats at all. But, since Pokemon games are pretty easy, I usually put it in the back of my mind. But here, I actually had to consider it. That first Pokemon of the Steel-type gym, Magneton, was the bane of my existence. But luckily, I figured out that one of my Pokemon had one more speed than that Magneton, I think. If my math is right, I had one more point into speed above Magneton. That helped me pretty much win. I think it was my Skorupi, and I taught it Dig so that it could have, a super effective move against Steel types. And luckily, Magneton did not have Levitate, so good for me. That was one of the hardest gyms I've ever had to do, and I hated it. But on the plus side, while I was grinding, I found a shiny Rhyhorn. The sad thing about this is, A, I can't use it, and B, aside from a shiny Ghastly that I found in Soul Silver, not Heart Gold, that is the second shiny Pokemon, not already programmed into the game like the Red Gyarados. That's the only wild shiny Pokemon that I've ever found, besides Soul Silver. I have never, in any other instance, caught another shiny Pokemon that wasn't hard-coded into the game. And of course, I can't use it. A little frustrated about that. But hey, what are you gonna do? At least I got another shiny Pokemon now. We're good. After that, the game got a little difficult compared to the first half of the game. Not impossible, but a little more challenging. I think I was starting to feel it in that last half of the game, which I started having to use a bit more strategy, especially when I had to get through the Giratina part of the game. Things were getting pretty difficult and pretty frustrating, especially with most of Team Galactic's members having poison types and me not being able to do anything about it. But I powered through, I made it, I got through the last gym as well, and then I was on my way to the Elite Four. I decided I wanted to train all my Pokemon all the way up to level 50, just to kind of round things out. So after a few hours of grinding, you've got to be kidding me, another shiny! And it's a shiny Gabite! What is my life at this point? I now have 2 shinies I can't use for this run. I don't know whether to be happy or frustrated. And also, 2 shinies in one game when I've never caught another shiny, but now I have 3. This run of Platinum is taking a lot out of me. At any rate, I got all my Pokemon up to, or very close to level 50, and decided to stock up on items, because items are broken, and go ahead and challenge the Elite Four. That was a mistake, because there's a couple things I didn't realize. Number one, my team was not optimized. And number two, my Pokemon were very underleveled. So after losing, of course, I decided to take a hard look at my team, go farm heart scales, and get the moves that I needed to finish everything. Eventually, I finally decided to go back. I still wasn't going to grind anymore because it was already taking a very long time, but I figured I was optimized enough and I had enough items that I should be able to beat this. Aaron wasn't too bad. I mean, I had a Crobat with flying type moves, and I taught my Drapion Fire Fang, so I was able to get through him decently okay. Bertha was barely a challenge because I had Roserade and Tentacruel, so yeah, she wasn't really a challenge at all. And then there was Lucian. He was the one that wiped my team the last time I tried, and he's the reason I decided to teach my Drapion Fire Fang. So Fire Fang on his Bronzong and then Crunch for the rest of them. He was a little bit of a struggle, but I made it through. And then Cynthia. My Pokemon were 10 levels under most of hers. If I was going to lose, this is where I would lose. Most of her Pokemon I didn't have any sort of advantage against. They have weaknesses, but very few, and not a whole lot that my team was able to cover. So, I had my strategy that I was hoping to use for a lot of the game, and didn't get to for a lot of the game. Poison and Stall. Her Spiritomb, Poison and Stall. Her Togekiss, Poison and Stall. Her Garchomp. Why is she sending her Garchomp out third? That's her strongest one. Why is it third? I thought for sure Garchomp was going to wipe my entire team, but I poisoned and stalled. It was literally a game of revive a Pokemon, let the one that's out die. Revive the next Pokemon. It dies. Revive another. It dies. It missed. Revive another Pokemon. Now I have an extra. Now that one dies. Until finally, after poisoning it twice, I was finally able to get rid of Garchomp. And I felt like I was in the home stretch. But she still had, half of her team, and mine was kind of on the ropes. Roserade wasn't too hard to deal with because I had my Crobat, and grass is weak to flying. My Lodic was a bit of a struggle, despite being weak to grass. Had to do a little bit of stalling on that one. And then there was Lucario. I struggled with this one more than I thought I was going to. I think by this point I was down to 2 Pokemon, and neither of them was at full health. But I decided to take a risk. I sent out my Tentacruel, because it's got really high defense, and it knows Barrier. And, in case you'd forgotten, 2 of the attacks that Cynthia's Lucario knows are physical type moves. But of the special type moves it knows, neither of them is especially strong against water types, or poison types. So, I was able to stack Barrier until it could do almost nothing to me. Then, I was able to heal up enough of my team to feel like I'd have enough of a type advantage. But to get as much use as possible out of my Tentacruel, I decided to hit it with a few Hydro Pumps. And then it turns out I didn't need the rest of my team. Whoops. And that was it. I have finished Platinum with only poison types. I don't know if I will ever do that again. That was the hardest I've had to think for a Pokemon game ever. And it was very frustrating and very stressful. But I kind of enjoyed it. I probably wouldn't do poison types ever again, but maybe another type if it was a little better. Not sure if I'll follow in my friend's footsteps and do a 1 Pokemon run, but hey, at least I can say I've done this. And on Platinum, which I've heard is one of the hardest Pokemon games. As for the game itself, I usually talk about the games, not so much my experience, but honestly, Platinum doesn't have great writing. Honestly, Platinum was weird to go through again. Whenever I thought back to Gen 4, I always kind of thought fondly of it, but having replayed it again, feels kind of like a basic, bare-bones Pokemon experience in a lot of ways. I mean, don't get me wrong, it does a lot of great things, but even just going through the game, you know how a lot of people are complaining that Pokemon kind of hold your hand? Yeah, it kind of felt like it was holding my hand through a lot of the game in a few ways. Not so much in the here, let's make it as easy as possible type of way, but in a most of the characters in the first half of the game explain the game. It's not something I really remembered, but man, when you notice it, it gets really annoying. Wow, did you notice that some Pokemon are super effective against other Pokemon? Wow, did you notice that some Pokemon have resistances? Did you know some Pokemon can evolve? You should give an item to your Pokemon. That could help it in battle. Okay, yeah, I get it, I know. Thanks. You don't have to tell me 50 times. Which is weird that it does that because this Platinum's not super easy. There's a lot of challenge to it, at least when you're doing a challenge run. I mean, hey, I'm an adult. I don't need your help. I can finish the game with my skill all on my own. Ignore those. I would say that was probably the most annoying part of it, was just the constant, like, is this the only dialogue you have, is to explain how the game works? Alright. For the time, a lot of the visuals were nice, but they don't really age well, which, you know, understandable. At least the 3D elements. The sprites, I mean, sprites are sprites. They'll always, to some degree, be good. It was also kind of a unfortunate reminder of what Pokemon used to be when HMs were a thing, and TMs could only be used once, and so on and so forth. And honestly, you know what I've come to realize? I like the full team EXP share. I think the game needs to be balanced around that, but being able to have my team kind of, to some degree, all around the same level is nice. I feel like there's a few ways to improve it based on what I saw in stuff like Sword and Shield, but, you know, I like the idea behind it. As long as it gets balanced, I want it in. Because only being able to level up 2 of my Pokemon at a time really became a time crunch. And I know some people like grinding, a lot of people don't. Also, can I just say, Defog is the worst HM, like ever? Why does it even exist? Actually, you know what? I'm going to add Flash to that. Flash sucks too. I hate them both. So yeah, that was my experience with Pokemon Platinum. Going back through it with a single type team. And then finding 2 shinies for some reason. Anyway, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Be sure to press all the buttons, and I hope you have a great day.